And we welcome you to a breaking news report now on Narativ. The breaking news appears to be a 2-week ceasefire now declared in the war with Iran. This is according to a Truth Social post just posted a short while ago by Donald Trump on his Truth Social account. I'm just making sure that we are live across all our channels here, whether you're watching on YouTube or Substack or anywhere else. We welcome you to this broadcast. This is the post he just put up based on conversations with the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. I agreed to suspend the bombing and attack on Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran, and I believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran. But a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated on behalf of the United States of America as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East. Really, it is an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So, an apparent ceasefire. He says he's agreed to not only the ceasefire, which would involve them opening the Straits of Hormuz immediately, the Iranians at least, but a longer-term ceasefire. He says will be able to resolve all these issues that he has with Iran, which of course are long and plentiful. All of which either suggests that this is a Taco Tuesday and this isn't really a ceasefire agreement. We'll find out if the Iranians confirm this ceasefire agreement, and we'll find out from the Pakistanis whether they've understood it in the same way and whether the Iranians have agreed to it as well. Now, it's possible this is the real deal. In fact, it's likely it is the real deal. It has felt in the last few hours that Donald Trump was quite serious about either launching these attacks or finding another way to end this confrontation that he's been simmering. Now, it doesn't mean the conflict is over. Of course, it doesn't mean that there is an agreement on all these outstanding issues, but it does mean that tonight's big end of civilization attack on the bridges and power plants around Iran is not happening. And that is significant. This tweet or this Truth Social came out at 6:32 p.m. So just over half an hour ago, and has now obviously meant that the 8 o'clock deadline that we were all anticipating is over. He will be crying about this for some time, and of course, there's always the possibility, and I wouldn't put it past him, that all of this is a bit of showmanship in order to reclaim the idea that he's actually won this war, because to most of us, this has been a misadventure. When you've gone into a war for unnecessary reasons, when the Straits of Hormuz were opened, now you've killed a regime, so-called or regime leadership, but you haven't really achieved regime change because you've just replaced it with a younger version of what was. That isn't really a reason to go to war, nor is it a good justification for burning through all your ammunition in the way that the Americans did in just such a short amount of time. But he is going to play this to the hilt, as you know Donald Trump will. He'll say, our threats work, this is how you handle things, this is the art of the deal. Maybe it's part of the performance of the end of the Iran war by creating the art of the deal kind of scenario where you have this moment of triumph that maybe was part of this package that was created in agreement with the Iranian regime. Who knows? We'll find out the details in the next few days. I'm just speculating a little bit here because it's hard to see Donald Trump being as audacious as he's been without this greater context. But who knows? We have not been in this territory before. Earlier on, I published a post saying that I thought this was going to be a longer conflict and that the reason behind that was the increase in oil prices. In fact, I think that is exactly why we've had this entire confrontation, is the increase in oil prices and now the normalization, presumably, of the oil flows of Iranian oil through to the West, including perhaps also Russian oil flowing to the West, because of course those sanctions were lifted as well. We will take a look at this very carefully over the next few days, along with many others. We'll assess how this happened. And for now, we have to take the president's word, although it's sometimes difficult to do these days. He is claiming that there is a ceasefire, a double-sided ceasefire, he calls it, between the Iranians and the Americans, negotiated by Pakistan, a ceasefire that he says will resolve all the issues, including, he says, a complete and immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. And those words, complete, immediate, and safe, is really what the second one, there being immediate, is really important, because if we see that in the next few hours or days, then we know, of course, this is a real deal. If the strait remains closed and nothing happens, well, this was either a bluff by the Iranians or something else. So this is still a continuing and breaking news story. But for now, Trump says he's reached a ceasefire with Iran, negotiated with Pakistan. He's delaying his strikes for 2 weeks. His end of civilization attack, as he called it earlier on today. And all of this is pending the reopening of the Straits of Hormuz, which must happen immediately, he says, and completely. That's another extraordinary news day we've had here during the Trump regime on Narrative. And we hope you'll continue to stay with us as we cover the story completely. I can tell you as well that the conversations with Trump and happened directly with Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and the Field Marshal Asim Munir, the head of Pakistan's military. And that's important to note that, of course, these two leaders are strongmen themselves, but they are strongmen who are, engaged in this peace process and were the official channels to the Iranians via some back channels that they had into Iran. Pakistan brokered the de-escalation. It's not an American brokered thing, but you wouldn't expect them to be brokering it, nor would you expect Israel to be brokering it. You'd expect a third party to be brokering something like this, and Pakistan was that country. We will look at that 10-point proposal he says he received from Iran. That will be interesting. We've seen that the 10 points, at least we've known the 10-point proposal was making its way back from the Iranians, but we haven't seen it. And our expectation was that it was going to be a non-starter for the Americans. But it seems that there is some sort of agreement now negotiated by the Pakistanis as middlemen there in order to cede to these agreements. 3 other things to flag right now. This is a ceasefire. It's not a surrender by either side. It's a ceasefire. So we don't know whether it's Washington or Tehran that is calling the shots here or has the upper hand in this negotiation. But we do know that the agreement that he seems to propose is the Iranian agreement that he seems to be accepting. So it might be that Americans did climb down on this threat, but they also climbed down on these other 10 points that Iran proposed. If that's the case, that'll be a very significant geopolitical shift and a point of weakness ultimately for the United States, having lost so many bases in the Middle East. The threats have been coming fast and thick for the last 36 hours. We've been seeing tweets, we've been seeing Truth Socials, and a press conference yesterday, which included a threat to bomb every bridge, every power plant, and every hospital in Iran. Of course, that is not happening. That would have begun at 8 o'clock and be ended by midnight tonight. In other words, a prime time sort of event the president was trying to concoct there, but it doesn't obviously look like that's going to happen. Pakistan is the broker. That's interesting. It's different. Normally, Pakistan is not on the world stage doing that kind of thing, but it does give Islamabad a new position in the world where they are able to do this kind of thing. They are, of course, a nuclear power, but they also have a long-term back channel to Tehran. The field marshal that was mentioned there, Asim Munir, was at the White House just about a week ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, and that's interesting that he was there. He was certainly helpful in negotiating conversations with Riyadh and Tel Aviv as well. In other words, there were three-way conversations and multiple other parties involved in conversations that were ultimately leading to the ceasefire. The third thing here to note is it all is pending on the Strait of Hormuz opening up. Of course, that's the prize. The Strait of Hormuz is what's been clogging up oil supplies around the world. It's what has been pushing prices up around the world, and has also been threatening election outcomes around the world. And it does seem like if this is the victory that he gets right now, it's a small victory, because just before they started this war, the Straits of Hormuz was open. So what are they really getting? Just 2 weeks or 3 weeks of increased prices that benefit Russia, that benefit the oil syndicate? Yes, that's a win for them. But is it a win for the United States to be back where we started? I don't think so. We'll wait to see what these other 10 points in the Iranian proposal are. If they include that they'll be allowed to maintain a nuclear program of any sort, well, that will be a climb down for America. That'll mean America lost that war. The condition Trump set on Iran's nuclear program is significant, of course. We'll see what happens. I mean, even if they agree to this climb down, will they agree to it in reality? Will they continue to have a nuclear program on the side or behind the scenes as they've done in years past? Finally, this is a ceasefire. It's not necessarily a peace agreement, but it does mean that the bombings that have been targeting Iran, but also the return bombings that have been hitting all of the Middle East, from Israel to the UAE, to Saudi Arabia, to Qatar, to Kuwait, well, those will also, if this ceasefire holds, they will also stop. And it also means, of course, that the most significant thing is that we'll be watching the oil prices. That'll really tell you, as Brent crude declines or increases in the next few days or few hours, we will know how serious a ceasefire this is. Many people in the world are calling it a suspension. I think this is a ceasefire, and I think it's a misnomer to call it anything less, unless the Iranians don't agree. I mean, unless the Iranians turn around and say, this is nonsense, I'll put out another Lego video, and we'll be, all not surprised by the fact that the president lied. But on the face of it, from what we've been seeing happening, the conditions seemed ripe for a ceasefire. There was certainly not much more that Iran could do, that America could do, other than this dramatic move of escalating to this end of civilization or a ground war. And a ground war wasn't really on the cards. So this was the only escalation they had. Meanwhile, Iran really held the trump card, if you would, because they were keeping the straits closed. Now, if the straits are open, there you go. Trump might have eked out a little victory in this little battle, but he certainly looks like he's lost the war with Iran. And oil prices and the entire environment we're witnessing right now, where you've got Russia back in the fray, selling oil and under no sanctions, certainly helps the Russian economy, weakens the American position, but also weakens Ukraine. It also weakens Europe. It'll be interesting if those sanctions are now reapplied. It'll be interesting to see if Iranian sanctions are reapplied. If we end this war and Iran is back in the oil market and Russia's back in the oil market, it has definitely been a not a very good excursion, as he called it, for America. This would be a loss for America. In fact, all the signs are that this is a loss for America. But nevertheless, his attempt today, at least, to extort a small victory out of the jaws of what would have been a big defeat may in fact have come true for Donald Trump. That's my coverage today. We were planning to do a very big live show with Lev Parnas and Waj and a whole bunch of other people, but we don't have to do that right now, which is a welcome thing here, because we get to have a reasonable working day and some evening hours here. But that is the news as we leave you. The President of the United States on a Truth Social saying, based on the conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran, and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace with the Middle East. What does that mean? It means that the regime that was there stays in place. Nothing, yes, the Ayatollah is gone, but the same regime stays in place. All that's happening here is maybe an agreement with Israel, maybe an agreement with the United States that they're no longer going to seek the extinction of each other's states, but the regime continues, and that means that for Trump and the oil syndicate, it's a good day for them because that means the oil is moving. But it's a bad day for democracy. It's a bad day for America. And it's a bad day for those of us in the world who believe that human rights matter, that free speech matters, that open protests matter. Those things are really important. And what we're seeing here is really a victory for the Islamic regime of Iran. I want to make sure that we're not... let me just double check that I don't know, Lev is on his way home. Maybe he still wants to drop in here. Or if anyone else is watching who wants to just chime in on camera, this is the opportunity, because otherwise we'll end it there. This is a remarkable day, and I'm going to be cautious with everybody here because I know everybody is going to be sick and tired of Donald Trump calling this the end of another great war, that he's been able to find a ninth war that he's solved, some peace thing. This is not, in fact, anything that they can claim as a victory. And I caution anyone out there who says that America's won this or that Donald Trump has successfully maneuvered his way into victory here. This is not a victory over Iran in the sense we will have to see, however, what they say in all these 10 points, and we'll see what comes out. I hear that Lev is around, so let me just quickly send him a quick invite. And I'm sorry, I'm going to stop talking for a second here while I do that, because I am not actually able to do too many things at one time. But let's try. Let's go. Yeah, Lev, I'm sending you the invite right now. I don't know if you can join, but you're welcome to join if you are here. I'd like to hear your take on what this is like, or how this will be read inside the White House. I mean, they will certainly be planning a rollout like nobody's business, saying that the president won, the president achieved, the stand down. It is not that. The president may have got Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz a little early, but he certainly has not won this war. This, at the very least, could be a draw, maybe, but we'll have to see what's in the fine details of these 10 points. All right. I can't tell what Lev is typing, but he's typing something right now. This is a big day because it could have been a big day in a very different way. I believe that they were ready to actually do what they needed to do, although it is also quite revealing that they haven't, and that's a sign that maybe there's more coordination than we realize. Someone's saying it's taco bullshit. You know, I've been tempted to call out this as Taco Tuesday because this is exactly what Trump is likely to do on most of these occasions. Now I'm beginning to lean towards this idea that perhaps it's an orchestrated, ceasefire that they've done in order to improve their own position. Levy's busy. He won't come on right now, but maybe a little later on. However, I don't think I'm going to be here later on, but we'll try. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. This is big breaking news, of course. We were all waiting a pretty significant bomb show in Iran where, multiple bridges were said to be targeted, multiple power plants were going to be targeted. That has now been called off for at least a period of 2 weeks, says the President of the United States. And he has said in a negotiated settlement he claims to have had with Pakistan, the President of Pakistan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, that he will, in fact, have a ceasefire that will be include the immediate opening of the Straits of Hormuz, and also a much more detailed ceasefire, which will be the end of the war, peace, he says, where 10 points that have been sent in by the Iranians will be somewhat agreeable to the Americans. We will see what happens in the coming days. You've been watching our breaking news coverage tonight here on Narativ. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. And we'll see you again tomorrow on the 5 Stack at 3 p.m.